You think love is safe until a silent king reacts before you cry. You never realize danger until power whispers one warning meant only for you. The city glowed under a cold moon, its lights trembling across silent rain-soaked streets, and a crowded restaurant sparkled with warm chandeliers and false laughter. The windows shimmered with gloss, the chairs lined like polished thrones, and every wealthy guest played their role with perfectly rehearsed smiles. In that glittering place sat Alara, dressed in a simple navy dress, unaware that tonight would break pieces she thought were unbreakable. Her eyes held softness, calm, and quiet hope as she waited for the man who had invited her here, a charming merchant named Cashin. They had met only twice, yet his kindness felt genuine and something in his voice seemed protective. She believed meeting him again might change something in her life, something she could not name. She waited, unaware of the cold eyes watching from above. On the restaurant's upper balcony, separated by shadows and tall curtains, stood the vampire king, Vladric, wearing a long coat darker than obsidian. He did not breathe the same air, he did not eat the same food, and he did not belong to the world below. Yet he watched, silent, unmoving, his posture tall and controlled. He was not here for pleasure nor curiosity. He was here because someone under his protection had stepped into mortal danger. That someone was Alara. She did not know the truth, not yet. She only felt a strange heaviness in the air, like a storm building in the walls. She tried to ignore it, focusing on the soft music, the candlelight flickering near her glass, and the empty seat across her table. Minutes passed, then more minutes, until the music grew irritating and the laughter felt sharp. Akashin finally arrived. He walked through the crowd wearing a perfectly pressed suit and a practiced smile that did not reach his eyes. Many heads turned to notice him, some nodded, and a few whispered. Alara smiled gently, happy to see a familiar face. She stood slightly out of respect, but he gestured for her to sit. His eyes looked softer than his tone, yet something in him felt different tonight. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice smooth, almost theatrical. "I hope the wait was not too long." Alara replied softly, "I did not mind. The place looks beautiful tonight." She tried to hide her nervousness, her hands folding near the glass. He ordered wine, then leaned closer, his expression shifting like a mask changing roles. His voice lowered, "I want to ask you something, Alara, something serious." Her heart tugged. She nodded, preparing for something meaningful, maybe hopeful. Instead, Cashin continued, "I need access to your voice." As she frowned softly, confused, "My voice." He nodded as if it were a normal request, choosing his words carefully. "Your voice has value, trust me. Someone I know wants it. It can make both of us very wealthy." Alara blinked, disturbed. "I do not understand. Why would anyone want my voice?" Cashin leaned back, amused by her innocence. "Because your voice can resonate with certain beings. There are powerful ears interested in it. All I need is your agreement." She stared at him, unsettled. Her voice was ordinary, nothing special. She sang sometimes, softly, never in public. She worked in a bookstore, had no magical lineage, no talent for influence, nothing rare, so his words made no sense. "I do not want to sell anything from myself," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "And you are scaring me." His smile stiffened. "Alara, do not be foolish. You should be grateful. This is a chance most mortals never receive." She pushed her chair back slightly. "I think this is a misunderstanding. I should leave." Cashin's face hardened, the actor mask shattering. He spoke through gritted teeth. "You will not walk away from this. You were chosen. You will cooperate." Before she could respond, before she could even breathe properly, the lights dimmed, the candles shook, the music cracked like broken glass in the air. Fear tightened her lungs, and the restaurant grew unnaturally cold. Cashin froze, his confidence collapsing into alarm. The entire room felt watched not by humans, but by something more dominant, something ancient. Slow footsteps echoed above everyone, slow enough to demand attention, powerful enough to silence every whisper. The vampire king descended the grand stairway, his presence drawing every soul into uncomfortable awe. He walked with silent grace, his coat shifting like shadows flowing across marble. His eyes were voids of midnight, yet they burned with crimson command. No one knew him, yet everyone feared him. He stopped at Alara's table, his voice low yet thunderous enough to silence the entire restaurant. "Stand," he ordered quietly. She rose instinctively, her knees trembling, unaware that his tone carried protection, not punishment. Cashin stepped back, sweat gathering near his temples. The vampire king looked at him with a cold stare that stripped him of arrogance. "You dared to threaten her," the king said, voice sharp like broken ice. "In my presence." Cashin stammered, "I did not know she belonged to anyone important." The king's expression darkened, a hint of lethal promise edging his words. "She does not belong to anyone, yet she is under my protection." Alara's breath caught. The king turned toward her, his voice soft enough only for her to hear. "Do not look at him again," he whispered. "He is not who he pretends to be." His tone carried something deeper than authority, something wounded, something lonely. It felt like a warning carved from experience, from pain, from promises once broken. The restaurant remained frozen, every pair of eyes watching, yet no one dared to move. Alara felt her heart pounding wildly as if it were trying to escape her chest. She did not know why a king protected her. She did not know what Cashin wanted. She only knew the king's presence felt safer than the world she thought she understood. He continued, still speaking softly, "You must leave with me now. Your safety depends on it." Everything in her life changed in that moment. Nothing outside the restaurant had shifted, yet her world no longer belonged to the ordinary. The vampire king had chosen to protect her, and his protection would cost something greater than she could imagine. Something powerful, or something dangerous. Something irreversible. Cold night air rushed against Alara's skin as the vampire king led her out of the restaurant. The moon sat heavy above the city, pale and watchful, and the wind bit through her dress as if warning her about the path ahead. She followed only because his presence felt like the only steady thing in a collapsing world. They stepped into a quiet alley where rainwater collected in dark puddles. The king stopped, turning toward her with eyes still burning from fury he refused to unleash. In that moment, Alara saw something unsettling, something deeper than power. Behind his control lived a quiet sorrow, like a wound old enough to bleed without tears. She whispered nervously, "Why did you protect me?" His answer arrived without hesitation. "Because someone wants what is yours and you do not know its value." Her pulse tightened. "My voice is just a voice." "Oh, your voice is a key," he said. A chill rippled through her spine. A key to what? The king did not reply immediately, as though every word he carried had consequences. He took a slow breath, the cold air fogging faintly with it. Even though he was a vampire, frost clung to his exhale, a sign of a power beyond hunger. "There are ancient beings," he said quietly, "who sleep beneath this city. They rest in silence, and only a rare voice can awaken them. Your voice resonates with their blood. If you are used by the wrong hands, you will not survive the awakening." Her heart beat quick, her throat tightening, and Cashin knew this. "He knew very little," the king replied. "He was just a traitor trying to sell you to someone greater, someone hidden." Alara felt sick, a wave of dread twisting inside her. "You said I must leave with you. Does that mean I have no choice?" The king stepped closer, his tone shifting from command to something strangely gentle. "You always have a choice, but if you choose to walk away, I cannot protect you, and they will come for you again." His words were not forceful, yet they carried a heavy truth she could not ignore. Alara looked into his eyes, searching for cruelty, for selfish motive, for hunger. Instead, she found something she never expected from a vampire king. "Regret." She nodded slowly, though fear trembled through her voice. "Then I will go with you, but tell me your name." This time he hesitated, as though names themselves carried danger. After a moment, he answered in a low tone. "Vladrik." Alara repeated the name softly, and he looked away, almost pained by the sound of it. Without another word, he extended his hand, not forcefully, not with dominance, but with silent request. She placed her hand in his. They walked through the alley deeper into the city, where footsteps echoed against wet stone and fog coiled around street lamps like pale serpents. The further they moved, the quieter the world grew, as if everything living was afraid to follow. Alara finally asked, "Where are we going?" To which he replied, "To my domain. The mortal world has no safe place for you." His domain, she thought, the idea felt unreal, yet the city itself seemed to shift around them as if guiding them toward something ancient. They stopped at a wrought iron gate covered in ivy and frost, though no winter had touched the city. With a simple gesture, the gate unlocked, creaking open with mechanical obedience. Beyond it stretched a long path lined with black rose bushes, their petals glistening with cold dew. Alara whispered, "This place feels alive." Vladrik answered calmly, "It is. Everything in my domain breathes under my command." They reached a towering estate carved from marble darker than night. Gothic arches soared into the sky and stained windows gleamed with moonlit red. She felt the building watching her as though the stone itself had eyes. Vladrik pushed the heavy doors open. Warm candlelight spilled into the entrance hall, revealing banners of deep crimson, polished floors, and tall statues shaped like ancient guardians. Alara stepped inside, overwhelmed. A soft voice echoed from above, "My king, you have returned early." A figure descended the staircase, a young vampire with hair like silver silk and eyes as pale as morning fog. His gaze flicked toward Alara with quiet curiosity, not hostility. Bowing deeply, he addressed Vladrik. "Is she the one?" Vladrik's gaze hardened. "She is not a weapon, she is under my protection." The young vampire nodded quickly, but Alara sensed tension in those words, as if Vladrik had spoken them many times before for someone else long ago. The king's tone softened slightly toward her. "You will stay here until I discover who seeks you and why they need your voice now." She swallowed uneasily. "How long will I be here?" Vladrik met her eyes, honesty heavy in his answer. "Until I am certain that no one will ever use you." Something in his voice made her question whether he protected her or himself. Before she could ask, the candles flickered violently, shadows stretching across the walls. A distant door slammed within the estate, and a whisper slithered through the air as if spoken by someone unseen. The young vampire stiffened. Someone has entered the boundary. Vladrik's eyes glowed, cold and merciless. They came for her faster than expected. He stepped in front of Alara with slow, protective instinct, every movement controlled like a sharpened blade. His voice carried quiet threat. "Stay behind me now." And for the first time, Alara realized that being protected by a king was not safety. It was where Lara backed away as Vladrik stepped forward, his coat sweeping across the marble floor like living shadow. The candles along the hall strained against an invisible force, their flames bending sideways as though pushed by a furious wind. The young silver-haired vampire drew closer, eyes alert, jaw tight with worry. "My king," he whispered. The intruder crossed the boundary without triggering the wards. Vladrik's expression sharpened. "Then it is someone who once belonged here." The air shifted, tense and brittle. Alara felt colder than the night outside. Someone who belonged here, someone strong enough to breach magic meant to repel every unnatural presence. She heard nothing except her own unsteady breathing, but the king seemed to hear something deeper, something silent. He turned to Alara without breaking focus. "Do not speak, no matter what you hear." His tone held absolute command. Alara nodded, fear prickling her skin like icy thorns. A figure appeared at the far end of the hall, emerging from a corridor swallowed by darkness. Tall, clad in a cloak the color of dried blood, and moving with effortless grace, the intruder walked as if he owned every stone in the estate. His eyes burned gold, unlike Vladrik's crimson, and his smile was a scar of mockery across his face. The young vampire muttered under his breath, "Lord Varian." "Varian." The name twisted through the air like a forbidden memory. Vladrik's posture grew rigid, a flicker of contained rage crossing his features, but he did not speak. The golden-eyed intruder finally stopped several steps away, hands casually behind his back as though he had come for nothing more than a conversation. "Brother," Varian greeted, voice smooth yet sharpened with venom. "Have you grown so desperate that you hide mortals in your halls now?" "Brother." The word hit Alara like thunder. Vladrik and Varian shared lineage, not just shared blood, but royal blood. Two princes or two kings, depending on which history whispered the truth. The estate seemed to tremble at the word, the statues looming as if remembering past wars. Vladrik's voice descended into a cold growl. "You do not belong here anymore." Varian raised a brow, amused. "I belonged here long before you ruled these halls." The silver-haired vampire tightened his fists, but Vladrik lifted one hand in warning, never taking his eyes off Varian. "State your purpose and leave." Varian's gaze slid to Alara, slow and hungry with curiosity rather than appetite. "You are the girl with the voice." A chill flooded her veins despite her silence. His tone did not sound intrigued by beauty but by ownership, as if she were an artifact, not a person. Vladrik's stance shifted like a blade angling toward the throat. "She is under my protection." Varian chuckled softly. "Then protection must have a price. What are you willing to sacrifice, dear brother?" The question dripped with old wounds. Alara sensed history between them, pain carved into their bloodline long before she was born. Vladrik did not answer immediately, but the silence itself revealed something. He had paid prices before, and the scars still bled. Varian moved closer, ignoring every warning radiating from Vladrik. "You cannot keep her. You know what her voice can awaken. Refusing to hand her over will lead to war among our kind." "I would rather burn our kind than let them use her," Vladrik replied, voice low and lethal. The words struck everyone like a blow. The young vampire flinched. Alara felt her heartbeat stumble, though she still obeyed the king's order not to speak. Varian, however, looked delighted by the threat. "Your compassion will destroy you," Varian murmured, "just as it destroyed her." "Alara." The word landed like a whisper carved from a grave. Vladrik froze, not physically, but in spirit, as if something inside him went still, suffocated by memory. Alara watched him closely, sensing vulnerability beneath his power. Varian stepped back, satisfied. "When your heart breaks again, do not call me your enemy, you choose it." With a simple gesture, Varian vanished into the darkness from which he came, the hall instantly warming as though danger had been breathing through the walls. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. The young vampire spoke first, voice shaking slightly. "My king, he knows too much." Vladrik turned away, voice strained but composed. "He always has." Alara finally whispered, unable to suppress the question. "Who is she, the one he spoke about?" Vladrik looked at her, and for the first time, pain moved through his eyes openly, raw and without armor. "Someone I failed to protect." He walked toward her slowly, stopping close enough that she could feel the weight of his regret like frost against her skin. "And I will not fail again." His voice was not a promise of affection, it was a vow forged in loss. But vows cost blood. And Alara had just stepped into one that would drown Empire's silence after Varian's departure lingered like smoke, refusing to dissolve. Torches along the wall dimmed, as if the estate itself mourned an unseen memory. Alara watched Vladrik's unmoving figure, the weight of his vow wrapping around her like cold chains she could neither escape nor understand. The young silver-haired vampire stepped closer, his voice soft. "My king, we must reinforce the wards. If Varian returned once, he will return again," Vladrik finished, his tone carved with certainty. "But not for negotiation next time." His gaze drifted to Alara. She held her arms close, not from winter chill, but from the crushing pressure of being wanted by forces she never asked to know. Vladrik straightened, shaking off vulnerability as if putting on armor. She needs training. She must learn to control her voice before it controls her. Alara's heart thudded. Training, I do not even understand what my voice is. You will, Vladrik replied, or others will control it for you. The young vampire bowed. I can assist my king. Vladrik nodded. Soren, you will guide her. Soren, the name fit the quiet strength in the young vampire's posture. He gestured politely, inviting Alara to follow him. She glanced once more at Vladrik, who turned away to address unseen threats in the shadows. She followed Soren up a staircase, spiraling into towers that reached toward the moon. Windows showed fog drifting across Gothic gardens, and distant statues gazed through the mist like ancient watchers. The estate felt alive, breathing with magic older than kingdoms. They entered a circular room lined with shelves of stone tablets, each carved with unfamiliar symbols. Glowing silver markings pulsed faintly against the walls, as though whispering in a language Alara did not know. Soren motioned for her to sit on a carved bench. Your voice is not just a sound, he began gently. It resonates with dormant bloodlines, not human, not vampire, something older. Alara frowned, but I am human. Your body is human, Soren answered, but your voice carries blood memory. There are songs, hymns, and commands spoken only by those born with the resonance. You are not chosen, you are inherited. Her mind swirled. Inherited from whom, from what? She whispered, what happens if I do not learn to control it? Soren's expression darkened, but his voice remained calm. Others will use you to awaken beings who should never rise again. If they succeed, they will tear your voice from you, permanently. The idea struck her chest like cold metal. Tear it from me, how? His eyes lowered. You would not survive it. Her breath caught with dread. Soren continued, I will not frighten you without reason. You need to learn before your voice reacts on its own. Powerful emotions can trigger it. She looked down at her hands. I do not feel powerful. A power rarely feels safe, Soren replied. He instructed her to breathe slowly, to let her chest relax, and to listen. Not to him, not to the room, but to the sound beneath her breath. It felt ridiculous at first until she noticed something strange. Her breath hummed faintly on its own like a low note vibrating in her throat. Startled, she covered her mouth. Soren nodded. Your resonance is waking, that is why they are moving now. They know a voice like yours has awakened only once in centuries. She lowered her hand, voice trembling. Who had it last time? Soren looked away, someone the king could not protect. The words pierced her deeper than fear. Vladrik's vow had not been born of duty, it was born of grief. Before she could ask more, the room pulsed with sudden chill. The silver markings flickered violently. Soren's eyes widened. Someone is probing the wards again. Alara stood quickly. Is it Varian? No, Soren answered with urgency. This presence is weaker but more reckless. They are searching, not waiting. A metallic hiss echoed through the hall outside, followed by distant footsteps moving too fast to be mortal. Soren grabbed her wrist gently. We must go, now. They rushed down a narrow passage lit by torches that flared at their presence. The walls groaned as though the estate itself was waking to defend them. Soren muttered in a low voice, stay close. Do not panic. If you panic, your voice may respond. Her heartbeat pounded wildly, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. They turned a corner, entering a glass corridor that overlooked the gardens. Fog seeped up from the earth like a rising tide. A figure darted across the courtyard. Not human, not vampire, smaller, hunched, crawling faster than running. It slammed itself against a gate covered in vines, claws tearing at the metal. Alara whispered, what is that? Soren spoke through clenched teeth. A revenant sent to sniff your resonance. They are blind, but they sense power like blood scent. The revenant screeched, a sound that rattled her skull and stirred something inside her throat. Her breath vibrated without her wanting it to. Fear forced her voice toward sound. Soren grabbed her shoulders firmly. Breathe, do not let it answer. The revenant clawed harder, shrieking louder. Her vision blurred, her throat humming painfully. Something in her wanted to scream, not out of terror, but instinct. Ancient instinct. Then a voice boomed from below. Enough. Vladrik stood in the courtyard, coat billowing violently with rising wind. His eyes blazed crimson, brighter than she had seen. The revenant shrank under his gaze, its body twisting in agony. One gesture from the king turned the creature to ash. The silence followed, heavy and final. Vladrik looked up at the glass corridor, meeting Alara's eyes across the distance, not with anger, with concern laced in desperation. She realized something then with terrifying clarity. The voice inside her was dangerous. But so was the king who wanted to protect it. Vladrik entered the corridor moments later, his steps silent yet shaking the floor beneath them. Ash still clung to his coat, the remnants of the revenant burned by his command. Alara backed away instinctively, not from disgust, but from the raw force he had revealed. Soren stood between them, cautious but respectful. Vladrik's gaze pierced her. Your resonance reacted, you lost control. The words struck her harder than accusation. He spoke not as a guardian, but as someone who feared what her voice could unleash. Alara steadied herself, the trembling inside her chest refusing to cease. I tried to hold it, she whispered. It just moved. His tone sharpened. Your fear is a summons. Monsters will answer if you do not silence it. The hallway seemed to shrink, pressure building as if the walls themselves listened. Alara looked at him, frustration rising. What if I cannot silence it? What if I do not want this? Vladrik stepped closer, his voice cold and decisive. Want has nothing to do with destiny. You are marked by ancient blood. You must obey it, or it will devour you. Anger flashed in her chest. Obey it or obey you. The words escaped before she could stop them. Soren inhaled sharply. Vladrik froze, not from offense, but from something heavier. His expression wrinkled with a shadow of guilt, though his voice remained stern. Your survival depends on learning from me. She met his eyes, refusing to lower her gaze. Or it depends on understanding myself, not being commanded. A flicker of respect crossed Vladrik's features, subtle but undeniable. Instead of anger, he turned away, restraining what he wanted to say. Rest, he commanded softly. Tomorrow you begin true training. Your voice needs discipline, not defiance. Soren guided her away gently, leaving the king alone in the corridor. Alara looked back once, seeing him stand still, hands clenched as if holding ghosts close enough to choke on. She was taken to a quiet chamber, lit with dim candlelight, its windows overlooking the fog-drenched garden. The room felt strangely warm, not with comfort but with watchful energy, as if magic lingered in every wall. Soren prepared tea, placing it carefully beside her bed. Do not misunderstand him, he said softly. He fears your fate because he has seen it before. Alara swallowed. Who was she, the one he failed to protect? Soren's eyes drifted toward the window, moonlight reflecting against them like melted silver. She had a voice like yours. She tried to use it for freedom, not for awakening, but her fear overwhelmed her. Her song unlocked something that should have never stirred. Alara listened in quiet horror, and Vladrik could not save her. He tried, Soren whispered, and the cost destroyed him. The tea turned cold in her hands. She could almost feel the presence of the girl who came before her, a voice too powerful to carry, a fate too heavy to escape. Alara closed her eyes briefly, whispering, So I am a replacement. Soren shook his head immediately. No, you are a chance, not a repeat. Before she could reply, a soft chime echoed through the estate, deep and mournful. Soren stiffened. The council is summoning him. They must have sensed the revenant's death. Alara frowned. There are others with power like his. Not like his, Soren answered. But they sit above him in law. They will question why he protects you. They may demand to take you. Her blood ran cold, and if he refuses, Soren's voice turned grim, then our king will no longer be king. The thought settled like lead in her lungs. Her voice could topple thrones without speaking a single word. She stared through the window as distant bells tolled, summoning Vladrik to judgment. Meanwhile, Vladrik walked deeper into the estate, toward a hidden chamber beneath the floor. Torchlight flickered across ancient carvings, and a massive stone door etched with blood sigils opened at his touch. He entered a circular chamber where 12 thrones sat empty, yet filled with whispering voices not physically present. An ethereal chorus spoke through the dark. Vladrik, king of the Crimson Domain, why have you interfered with ancient selection? Why do you protect the voice bearer? Vladrik's eyes glowed fiercely. Because she is not a vessel, she is a person. The whispers intensified, echoing with judgment. The voice does not belong to the mortal, it belongs to destiny. Vladrik bared his teeth, his voice heavy with fury that cracked centuries of obedience. Destiny is not a god, it does not decide who is broken to feed its hunger. The chamber trembled, shadows tightening around him like binding ropes. Yet he did not bow, did not submit. His voice cut through the darkness with the force of thunder. If anyone touches her, they will bleed before they breathe. The whispers paused, the chamber grew still. A final voice spoke, deeper and more ancient than the others. Then your fate is sealed with hers. If she falls, you will fall. Vladrik replied without fear, then let me fall, but she will not. The binding shadows released him, but at a price. His crown sigil burned against his skin, a mark of rebellion. He returned to the surface, weakened but unbroken. In her room, Alara pressed her hand against her throat, feeling the faint resonance beneath her fingertips. She did not know of his sacrifice, but something inside her felt heavier, warmer, like power choosing its keeper. She whispered into the dark, voice trembling with fear and determination. Then teach me, I refuse to be used by anyone. The estate listened, and somewhere deeper than blood or destiny, something ancient stirred in response. It did not awaken to destroy her. It awakened to answer her as night deepened around the estate, clouds swallowing the moon as if the world prepared for judgment. Torches dimmed without wind, locked doors trembled without touch, and every shadow held its breath. Alara stood in the center of her room, trembling but unwilling to run, unwilling to hide. Power hummed beneath her skin like a storm waiting to tear through the sky. As she whispered again, not loudly, not purposefully, "Teach me." The resonance inside her throat answered, warm and full, like a pulse older than language. It felt neither violent nor hungry, but curious, listening, not a weapon, not a burden, something waiting for meaning. The door opened quietly. Vladrik entered, coat damp with fog, eyes darker from the council's mark burning faint red against his neck. He looked weakened, but his voice carried steady command. Tonight is no longer training, tonight is war. Alara swallowed, Varian is coming. Vladrik nodded, not just him, others who want control. They know you are awakened now, they will arrive before dawn. Her voice shook, then teach me now quickly. Soren stepped into the room behind the king, holding small vials of obsidian ink and silver dust. We can bind her control, not erase it, not hide it, guide it. Vladrik motioned for Alara to sit. His tone softened, stripped of command. You must learn 3 truths about your voice. If you break even one, it will destroy you, not them. As she nodded, bracing herself. Soren drew silver lines across her palms, cold as snow. Vladrik traced obsidian sigils along her throat, gentle but firm. First, Vladrik said quietly, your voice obeys emotion, not thought. If fear controls you, the voice will kill for you. If mercy controls you, it will protect. You must choose. Her heart tightened. I choose not to harm. Then your voice must learn protection, Soren added. Vladrik nodded. Second, you cannot sing or scream the resonance. It is spoken. One word from you holds power equal to 1,000 spells. She exhaled slowly, so I must speak carefully. More carefully than kings, Vladrik warned. Soren completed the markings, the silver glowing delicately. And the third truth, your voice cannot serve you if you serve others. You must not obey any command while using it, not even the king's. Alara froze, not even yours. Vladrik stepped back. If you listen to me while your voice awakens, it will think you are a vessel, not a master, you will be lost. The air grew heavy between them, she met his eyes. Then I must stand alone. He nodded once, a warrior bowing to fate, not commanding it. I will stand beside you, but I will not control you. Before she could speak, a tremor ripped through the estate. Windows cracked, stones shuddered. The sky outside split with unnatural lightning, blood-red streaks tearing across clouds. Soren drew his blade. Vladrik's eyes burned fiercely. They are here. The front gates groaned open under invisible force, vines shriveling to ash as something more vicious than the revenant entered. Cloaked figures stepped across the courtyard, 7, then more, shadows spreading like smoke. At their center walked Varian, golden eyes gleaming triumph. Alara felt terror rush toward her, but she remembered truth won. Ovir summons destruction. She breathed slowly, forcing calm, letting mercy, not panic, fill her chest. The great hall doors burst open. Varian stepped inside, smiling like a victorious serpent. Brother, you made this too easy. Vladrik stood between him and Alara, voice cold. You cannot take her. Varian laughed. I do not need to, she will speak soon, and the Ancient Ones will answer, not for you, not for me, for fate. Alara stepped forward, no longer behind the king. No. The single word stopped every breath in the room. It was small, soft, but her resonance shivered through the air like silver thunder. Torches flared, shadows shrank. Even Varian paused. Vladrik did not move. He could not help her now. I will not awaken the Ancient Ones, Alara said quietly, and I will not be used. Varian's expression hardened. Your voice does not care what you want. It is destiny. The truth, too, echoed in her mind. A power obeys emotion. She spoke again, steady despite shaking hands. My voice is not for destruction, it is for protection. The resonance surged, not like fire but like light, warm, radiant, spreading through the hall like dawn breaking through stone. Varian recoiled. Oh, you cannot control it. She lifted her head, heart steady. I can choose. And truth 3 ignited. I do not obey. Her final word rang through the estate, clear and luminous. Arrest. The resonance exploded, not violently, but peacefully, sweeping over the intruders like a wave of gentle night. They collapsed, not dead, not harmed, silent, still, stripped of intent. Varian fell to his knees, eyes wide, unable to speak, unable to command. The hall quieted. The storm stopped. A fog lifted from the gardens. Alara's power receded like a tide, returning to her chest, calm and silent. Vladrik approached slowly, his expression unreadable, not proud, not shocked, something deeper. Relief. He bowed to her. Your voice has chosen its master. Alara exhaled shakily, and I choose its purpose. Soren sheathed his blade, awe softening his features. Then the kingdom is no longer ruled by fear. Vladrik rose, meeting her eyes, and you are no longer hunted. She looked at Varian, still unmoving, and whispered softly, let him return with no memory of what he wanted. Let him seek no voice again. Her command held gentle mercy, and Varian's eyes dimmed with peace, not defeat. He would leave as no threat. Vladrik stepped beside her, the mark on his neck fading slowly. You have rewritten fate, Alara. She shook her head. No, I simply stopped serving it. The king looked at her with something rare in immortal eyes. A hope. Outside, dawn finally broke, spilling gold over the crimson domain, lighting a world that would no longer use her, fear her, or hunt her. A world she had chosen not to rule, but to live freely within. And beside her walked a king no longer bound by grief, a guardian no longer protecting a weapon, but protecting a choice.